What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. My name is Lucas Wencl, and today I am bringing you 4 bold predictions ahead of Week 10 of the NFL season. Now, keep in mind, these are bold predictions, things that are unlikely to happen, but they're not impossible. If they hit, great, and if they don't, well, it was expected that they weren't going to, right? These aren't outside of the world of possibilities, though. But before we dive on into those predictions, if you're juggling multiple fantasy football teams and feeling overwhelmed, Fantasy Pros will help you simplify things. With My Playbook's multi-league assistant, you can see the latest news, notes, and rankings for every single player across all of your teams. It's all in one spot, making your path to victory clearer and easier. Dive in. Let us help you dominate all of your leagues with the multi-league assistant at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the My Playbook app. Alrighty, y'all, let's dive on into these bold predictions. 4 of them here, starting with number 1, Bijan Robinson. He'll go for 200 plus yards against the New Orleans Saints this week. Recently, Bijan has been nothing short of phenomenal in fantasy football. He has 4 straight games of 21 plus fantasy points. He has at least 100 plus total yards in each of those 4 games, and he has caught 7 passes in each of his last 2 games. And when I look at this matchup with the Saints, not only do I see him racking up another 20 plus fantasy points for the 5th straight week now, but this could be a bloodbath of production from Bijan Robinson. As of this recording, Drake London still labeled as day-to-day. We'll see what his status is. I don't have any practice reports in front of me as of this recording, but if he doesn't suit up, that is even more work for Bijan Robinson in this game. And we all know how bad this New Orleans Saints defense has been as of recent. The 5th most rushing yards allowed over the last 4 weeks to running backs. 5 yards per carry allowed in each of their last 3 games, and they are bottom 3 in EPA per rush on the season. Essentially what that means is that teams just have a tremendous amount of success running the ball against a New Orleans Saints defense. Now, I know Tyler Algier could easily filter in here and keep Bijan from hitting 200 total yards, but that's also what makes this a bold prediction. Bijan's season high for total yardage is only 140. But this is a matchup where I do legit think we could see Bijan rumble for 130, 140 yards on the ground, catch another 50 to 60 yards on top of it. We just saw that this last week. So especially if Drake London isn't available for this matchup, which again, I don't know as of this recording. But bold prediction number 1 is for Bijan Robinson to finish with 200 plus total yards against the New Orleans Saints. Let's keep it moving here. Now we'll go on to bold prediction number 2, which is for Brock Purdy to score 30 plus fantasy points against Tampa Bay and finish as the overall quarterback 1 on the week. I know Tampa Bay's secondary is getting healthier by the week, but somehow this Tampa team keeps forcing opponents into shootouts, and quarterbacks have been thriving against the Bucs recently. We go back to week 5. It was Kirk Cousins, 509 yards and 4 touchdown game. Week 7, it was Lamar Jackson for 281 and 5. Kirk Cousins again, 276 and 4. And just this past week now in week 9, it was 291 and 3 for Patrick Mahomes to get back on track. But what is stopping Brock Purdy from having a dominant 3 to 5 touchdown game against this Tampa team that is still racking up points without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, which is just astounding to me. Over the last 4 weeks, Tampa has allowed the 2nd most passing yards. They are giving up 25 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. That is the most in the entire league. And they've sacrificed 13 passing touchdowns, which is 3 more than any other team in the league. On the season, their defense, they have allowed the 5th highest success percentage, which essentially means the teams pick up 40% of their yards on first down, 60% of their yards needed on second down, and then convert on either 3rd or 4th down, which, just to translate that for you, success percentage is essentially a measure of how teams move the ball against a defense. So the fact that they have the 5th highest success percentage means that teams have no problem moving the ball against this Tampa defense. Now, coming back to the 49ers, I know CMC is on track to play in week 10. I'm also not 100% sold that we see him get his usual 20 plus touches in his first game back right out of the gate after having, Achilles tendonitis. I don't think Kyle Shanahan wants to rush him back if they don't need him to. If Baker is going to keep this Bucs team competitive, I think Shanahan and Purdy could cook in this game, so I'm a big fan of Purdy this week. I think we could see him have a massive week 10 against the Bucs, especially if the Bucs are just going to continue putting up points left and right on teams. I think it's going to force the 49ers to stay competitive in this game, and Brock Purdy could potentially put up 30-plus points, finish as the overall quarterback 1 this week. Let's move on to bold prediction number 3 here. We're going to tip the scales, get a little bit more negative here. Guy I really liked last week. I don't love him this week, though. Tony Pollard finishes outside of the top 40 running backs against the Los Angeles Chargers. Look, playing the odds in favor of Tony Pollard this year has been money thus far for me, but this matchup against the Chargers is just one I can't really get behind. Who knows if Tyjae Spears plays or not? I don't have any practice reports in front of me, as I mentioned, as of this recording, but I honestly don't think it matters either way for Tony Pollard. Obviously, if he plays, it's more likely that Tony Pollard finishes lower as a weekly finisher, but there have only been 3 running backs this year to rush for more than 50 yards against the Chargers. It was Breece Hall back in week 2 with 62 yards. Tyler Goodson had 51 yards in week 6. That barely counts towards the number, but then there was Jahmyr Gibbs in week 8 who had 127 yards, which, big shocker, Dan Campbell wants to run the football, and the Detroit Lions are good at running the football, right? Like, for this, I don't see teams having much success against the Chargers running the football outside of the teams who want to try and make that their identity, such as the Detroit Lions. And if you're Jim Harbaugh and you're looking at this matchup against a Mason Rudolph or Will Levis-led offense with Calvin Ridley as their best receiving option right now, and quite, no disrespect to Nick Westbrook-Akine or Tyler Boyd, but really their only playmaker on offense, how would you strategize on defense to stop the Tennessee Titans offense? I would make sure I completely stop their run game and force Will Levis or Mason Rudolph to beat my own run game and to beat a red-hot Justin Herbert right now. This is what the Chargers are good at. They have been so good against the run all season. They've allowed the 7th fewest rushing yards to running backs. They're being run on at the 5th lowest rate in the league, the 2nd fewest fantasy points per game allowed to running backs, and they boast the 2nd lowest EPA per rush on defense, which, again, the inverse of what we just talked about with the New Orleans Saints. Teams don't have success running the ball on them. So I think both defenses are going to stand on business in this game. That's the strength of both of these teams. Their defense is their strong point. And we could just end up getting a low-scoring, slug it out in the trenches kind of game. So unfortunately, I don't think that bodes too well for Tony Pollard. I have him, this is my bold prediction, finishing outside of the top 40 running backs this week. Last bold prediction, though, let's get a little more positive again, and I absolutely love this player this week. How about bold prediction number 4? Tyrone Tracy finishes as a top 3 running back against the Carolina Panthers this week. Last time I picked on the Carolina Panthers, it was with Javonte Williams, who let me down massively, but I have more faith in Tyrone Tracy than I do with Javonte Williams, especially with how he's been playing recently. Over the last 4 weeks, Tyrone Tracy, he has 2 finishes inside of the top 10 running backs, and he has 2 games with over 120 rushing yards this year. He has been stellar so far. And the lead back role now is essentially his over Devin Singletary. Tracy has outsnapped Singletary in each of the last 3 weeks and has outtouched him 48-16 during that stretch. This is Tyrone Tracy's role to lose. And we all know how atrocious the Panthers' run defense has been this year. They are allowing 31.4 fantasy points per game to the running back position this year. That is the most in the league. They have given up nearly 1,200 yards on the ground to running backs. Once again, the most in the league. Running backs have rushed for 13 touchdowns against them. That is 3 more than any other team in the league. And again, they have the 4th highest EPA per rush, so teams have success running the ball on them. This is a rising rookie in the second half of the season against likely the worst run defense in the entire league. So let's not overcomplicate this. We'll make this bold, and we'll say that Tyrone Tracy is not only going to have a good week, he's going to have a great week and finish as a top 3 running back at the position. That's all I've got for you today, though. Those are 4 bold predictions for week 10. But before we sign off here, though, remember, if you're juggling a multitude of fantasy football teams and you're feeling overwhelmed, FantasyPros will help you simplify things. With My Playbook's multi-league assistant, you can see the latest news, notes, and rankings for every single player across all of your teams. It's all in one spot, making your path to victory clearer and easier. Dive in. Let us help you dominate all your leagues with the multi-league assistant at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the My Playbook app.